Which is better if you're soldering on a budget? A cheap temperature control station like this, using the traditional soldering bits like we're all probably familiar with. Or something like this, an even cheaper unit which runs on T12 soldering bits, which look like that. Bit of a difference. So whilst making this video and having a play with this little thing, I did encounter a bit of a potential safety issue, which if you stay with me, I'll take you through what I found and how I've resolved it. So if you have one of these, you might want to stay watching, or if you're thinking of buying one. Now, a man of my years doesn't get excited easily, but I was very excited at the prospect of getting my hands on one of these, and for two very good reasons. The first being I was having such a nightmare with my existing solder station, and the second one, everyone's raving about the technology of the T12 irons. So in this video, I'm going to do a comparison and see how they perform side by side, and seeing if this really cheap iron can replace my existing setup. But before that, a thank you to the sponsor of this video, PCBWay. PCBWay, they make PCBs from as little as $5 with super fast shipping. Here is one that I got off their project pages. It's a recreation of the issue 3B ZX Spectrum board. So if you fancy getting yourself one of these, get yourself on the PCBWay projects pages. But not only do they do PCBs, they also do 3D printing. This is a little case they made up for me for my little Retrolium diagnostic cart. And as well as 3D printing, they do CNC machining. So whatever your project needs, do check out PCBWay. If you need some inspiration, check out their project pages. It's crammed full of them. But thank you again to PCBWay for sponsoring this video. Link in the description. So here it is, the super tiny, compact T12 soldering station. This station itself was sent to me by one of my viewers, Ian Allen. Thank you very much, Alan, and he sent a little note along with it, which was really nice too. It's really humbling when I have people that reach out like Ian and provide me with little bits and pieces to support my channel and hopefully make interesting content for yourselves. So if you have something you think I might be interested in doing a video on, there is an email in my channel description. Do reach out to me and I will get back in touch. So thanks again, Ian. Fantastic. So let's have a bit of a look at the control unit then. It's fairly underwhelming, really, isn't it? You've got the connection for the soldering iron. You've got a 3-digit temperature display. You've got a twisty knob for setting the temperature of the iron, and on-off switch and a kettle lead. But the thing that makes this unit exciting isn't this itself, it's these tips. Now, to explain why I'm so excited about these, I'll have to start by showing you the old technology with these. So this is my old iron, and if I take the tip off, just slide that out, and the white bit here is the heating element, and as you can see there, it's nowhere near the tip itself. And the other thing is there's tons of play in it. So it relies on this element transferring heat into the tip itself. And when you've got a load of play like that, the heat transfer isn't perfect. And this is where I've run into issues, to the point where I've been cutting up bits of aluminium drinks can to, obviously I've not cut this one to size yet, but to effectively use inside that gap and use it as a shim to increase the contact. That was one thing that I was finding was causing me some significant issues when I bought some different tips online, and I started to run into some real problems with getting heat into my soldering work. So the difference with these is that the element, the white thing in there, is all part of the tip. And if I'm led to believe correctly, the heating part goes right up to the very end of, as near as damn it to the end of the tip. Therefore, not only is the heating element really close to the end, but with it being moulded onto the element itself, you've got really good contact and therefore really excellent heat transfer. So the other thing that these T12 soldering tips are known for is heating up really quick when compared to the older style tips. So we shall give that a try and see how that works out. And what I thought I'd do is, because I don't have a proper soldering iron temperature tester, I'll try the multimeter and a thermocouple, see how that works out. And we'll see as well, hopefully, whether the temperature settings are accurate or not. And I'll compare it with my old setup, see how it performs. And then finally, we shall do what the soldering iron is for, and we'll give it a try doing some soldering and see how it performs compared to my old stuff. Right, so let's test how quickly it warms up. I've got power to the unit. I just now need to, I could do with more fingers than what I've got. It's quite a warm day in the UK today, but we're showing 27 degrees. Now, if I can turn the power on at the same time. Oh. Right, there we go. That's the temperature rising. Now what's the machine set to? Can't do two things at once. It's wound up incredibly quickly. What was the temperature set to? It was set to about 300. Let me turn it down to 200. And let's see where it settles at. I'll just cool the tip using my wet sponge off camera. Right, let's see. The display's saying it should be 200. That's a bit higher, isn't it? Is that cooling down? Is that because I've used a sponge and it's thrown a lot of heat into it? Well, let's see what that settles down at. It's jumping around, isn't it? 190. So it is settling around 200 degrees. Okay, so this is my old iron. Let's thereabouts room temperature, aren't we? I accidentally turned it on early, so it's not quite cooled down fully. So let's connect it and turn it on. Right, set to 200. So the station's saying it's at 200. The tip is warming up. It's certainly warming up a lot slower. Whoops. This isn't as easy as it looks. Whoops. Let's try the other side. The side of the tip might be easier. There we go. Well, I don't know how long that took, but we've got up to around 193 degrees. It's not far off, is it? It's quite close, but it's got there in the end. So let's try turning up to my sort of like normal soldering temperature, which I solder around 340 degrees usually. There we go. That's set to 340. Let's see how this, let's see how close it gets to 340. Well, I don't think that's me. I think that is about it. 311 degrees, 312. So understandably, I was quite disappointed with that. So what I've just done off camera is, you probably see, can you see? Let me try for you. I've got a bit of aluminium, little drinks can thing that I mentioned earlier, and I've just wedged some in there. So inserting that now feels a lot better. So let's see how that does. So hopefully this will still be set to 340, which it is. Let's see how this warms up. $330. So that is definitely better. So I think it's time to do some soldering, and I'm going to do what I do quite a lot of, and I'm going to solder this socket onto this PCB. And I think first of all I'll go with my original soldering iron, and then we'll give the new one a try. So we can do a row of each, can't we? See how that works out. So that's one side done with my old iron. I think it's time to finally give this new iron a try. We'll have it set to 340. So looking back over the soldering work then, I'm really pleased with both irons. You wouldn't expect there to be any problems here, to be fair, but I can't really say one has performed better than the other. They've both done an excellent job. Really happy with the joints that they've made, all nice and clean. The irons, both irons were really easy to work with. I can't really say that one was better than the other, really. Both good results. So what I thought I'd give a try is just see how good the iron is at putting heat into bigger joints. This is a scrap board that I've well, someone sent me it, and I'm just going to use it for bits and pieces from it. But what I thought I'd look at is some of these bigger contacts here and see how easily I can reflow these, because looking at it, they've all got good ground planes on it. So these are the ones that I would probably find trickier to do. So I'm going to try remelt these and reflow solder onto them. And it's a 75 watt iron apparently, so I think it should cope okay with that. But let's give it a try. Right, let's try reflow this. Get the iron set to 340, which should be fine. I'll just give the tip a clean. No problem. Let's try another one. One more. So I'm really pleased with that. So like I say, good ground planes, bigger connections, certainly the bigger stuff that I would ever work on. And it reflowed those, no problem at all whatsoever. So I'm quite pleased with that. So let's give my old iron a try on those same joints. No issue. Let's try the others. Slightly unfair example, I suppose, because this is all nice fresh solder. But nevertheless, quite happy with that. Let's try some different ones that I've not touched. Let's try this one here. Reasonably chunky one. And another. Why not? Made a bit of a mess, never mind. Well, I think it's fair to say, whoops, I think it's fair to say there's no issue with that iron either. Look at me blobby mess. Putting too much solder in. There we go. Bit too much solder there, but that's fine. It's proved what I needed to prove. So I mentioned earlier there's a potential bit of a safety issue with these little things, or at least with mine anyway. And the reason why I think there's a bit of an issue is the case itself. Now, the case itself is metal, and as such you would expect it to be earthed, so that if anything inside that's live were to contact with the case, then if you touched it without an earth, you would potentially get a shock from it. So in my mind, the case should have an earth on it. I'm not an electrician, and this isn't advice, but these are just my thoughts. And from that, and the way I deduced it is, now the case is metal and it's got like an anodized coating, and you'll see that it doesn't make good contact. So you could argue, well, even if the case did become live, touching it would not result in an electric shock. But it's not something I'm necessarily happy with. If I touch the screws at the back, you'll see that there is continuity. So it's the anodized coating that's preventing the electrical contact. But if you were to touch the screws at the back and it was shorted, then you would get a shock touching the screws potentially. And I can test that it's not an earth, because if I touch the earth pin, which is that one there, and touch the screw, if the case was earthed, then it would give me continuity there. So I can tell straight away from this that there's no earth connected to the case. I wouldn't advise necessarily touching things inside, but this is just how I did it. I suppose there's always the potential for stuff to be live in there, and if you start touching the pins and stuff, there could be capacitors still charged up and whatnot. So I'm not giving advice. This is just me, my thoughts, and how I've deduced what I've deduced. So let's get it open up, and I'll show you inside. So as you can probably see looking inside the case, I've already made some starts. I've fitted that, which I'm going to use. That's the earth pin. That's the earth pin there. So if we just test that from outside to inside, and there we go. So that's the earth pin there, which obviously there's nothing connected. So my idea is, it's not a complicated idea. It's to put an earth put an earth wire from there to the screw at the back, and then I will do one to the front as well, because this front plate I think is metal. So I'll do an earth wire to the front at the top and an earth wire to the back at the bottom, because there's no continuity between the top and bottom of the case. So I'm going to earth the top and bottom of the case, front and back, job done. So that's my idea. So this is it ready for the top case to go on. I've got the 2 earth cables just there to the front and the back. Now, I stole a bit of twin core cable, mains cable, to build this. But as you can see, I've connected it to the screw on the back of the case, and the one at the top at the front there is ready to be screwed into the case. And obviously I will check the earth in a bit. Apologies for those in the UK electricians, that cable should be yellow and white. Yellow and green. But I didn't have earth cable, so I used the blue neutral. So apologies to everyone for that. Just a case of testing now to make sure I've got the earth there, and testing on the earth pin and touching on that case screw down at the bottom. You'll see that I've got a nice continuity there. So I'm quite happy that the bottom part of the case is earthed, and then testing at the top, there's the earth there, and obviously that'll need screwing in and putting all together, which I'll do shortly. So that's it, all put back together, and I've got a good earth now, front and back, top and bottom, which I'll show you now. If I touch that screw there, we've got a good earth. At the bottom, earth, and at the back. So whether I've done it right or wrong, I'm quite happy with that. I think if something was to go wrong inside now and make contact with the case, whether the PCB comes loose and touches the case, the glue dries out, whatever, and the motherboard inside lifts off, I think if that worst case scenario were to happen and the live makes contact with the case itself, I'm pretty sure that's going to protect me. So there you go. So let's sum up then. Which do I prefer? Well, they both do an excellent job of soldering, it has to be said. Now, with the traditional iron, I have had ongoing issues with tip fitment, and there is the messing around factor of trying to shim them up, at least in my experience. Now, with the T12s, there's none of that issue. You just put them in and they work brilliantly. I also love the way that they heat up really quick. Typically for me, that's not so much of an issue because I'll be setting up and I'll put it on before I get going. But it's a really handy feature to have, knowing that it's going to heat up really quick. In terms of testing it on the bigger joints and stuff, well, I didn't really have much to test it on, really. But they both seem to do a decent job when they're set up properly of getting the heat into the joints nice and efficiently. Neither of them struggled on any of the stuff that I've tested them on. And I've tested them on some other stuff since recording some of those earlier clips, and both perform perfectly well. I think the future is the T12s though. They're remarkably convenient to use, and you can pick these tips up remarkably cheap off the likes of AliExpress. I've just ordered some tips, and I think I paid about £1.20 per tip. So it's not expensive. Very comparable really with the traditional tips, or at least the prices I've been paying anyway. I think it'd be wrong to ignore the issue with the case being earthed, at least from my point of view. I think that is potentially quite dangerous, albeit perhaps an unlikely occurrence. I can't ignore it though, and that's why I was adamant that I had to make sure that the case was earthed. For those reasons, I don't want to get myself electrocuted. I've done it enough to myself in the past, and I've never really enjoyed it, really. So taking into account the issue with the earth, which one would I ultimately go with? Well, I think it's a definite win for the T12 for me. You might think different, of course, but I like the convenience. I like its compact nature. I like the tips as well. I just think it works really, really well. I certainly won't be throwing my old iron out. It will sit there as a spare. But in terms of daily use, I will be definitely looking to make use of this. So if you got this far and enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. That'd be absolutely awesome. If you'd like to see more of this content in the future, don't forget to subscribe, as I'm always tinkering away and producing this nonsense. And if you would like to financially support my channel, there are links in the description to do that. But regardless, thank you for watching. That's the main thing. So I will wish you well and hopefully see you again in another video soon. Bye for now.